Going through the tiebreaker in a way made us justify our poor performances and actually made us feel like we earned this playoff spot, because the last couple of weeks we felt like we are not a playoffs team. I really want to make it to Malmö because it's a live event in my home country in front of a massive crowd, and I would feel so bad if I wasn't there. I will give everything I have for it, and I know that although we're starting at the bottom of the mountain, we can make it all the way to the top.
We started the season fine in terms of results, but we failed to identify what our issues were, and then I think we started losing, and it took a lot of our momentum and also brought a lot of negativity, and now we at least still have a good chance to turn it around.
Nick interrupted the TP. Patrick gets himself a kill. The whirling goodbye Vitality. Excel advance to playoffs.
Upset still standing, the healing massive. Upset for now, Upset. He wants to finish, but Perk says no today. The shutdown, the hero moment. Upset now leaving away, but he's ticking. No, just like that. Hopes and dreams, can he keep them going? He's just too damn strong. Are you kidding me? In the face of elimination, in the face of fate falling away from his hands, Upset says no. Fnatic say yes.
Vi ses i Malmö.
Well, welcome everyone to the LEC Summer Playoffs live from Berlin, Germany, where tonight Fnatic and Excel face off in an elimination match in the lower bracket. Which team will end their 2022 season tonight, and which team can keep their world dreams alive, as well as the dream of playing on stage in front of thousands of fans in Malmö. The fans here in the studio are ready. I hope we'll see a lot of you in Malmö as well. My name is Shax, and I'm joined here at the desk for this momentous day with Broxa and Trouble Inc. Hello, Trouble. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm so happy to be back. And first I'm working with you as well, Broxa. It will be fun.
It will be fun, Broxa. I know. I can assume that you have some extra feelings knowing that Fnatic is on the brink of elimination.
It definitely feels strange being here right now, about to see Fnatic playing for the world spot. I've been on their side so many times, fighting till the very end, and now just looking forward to analyze them, really.
Unfortunately, yesterday, Team Liquid, you tweeted good luck and...
Yeah, I even wore my little Team Liquid pin here yesterday to support them.
That didn't go
Lost
well.
the game 5, happens to the best.
Yeah.
But hey, I wouldn't mind a game 5 here today.
I agree with you. Yesterday, we didn't see a Game 5, but we saw G2 take down the Misfits to lock their ticket to Malmö. And it was 3-1 in the end, a convincing game to out of Misfits, but overall, G2 was much stronger.
I mean, this is G2 in playoffs every single time, right? They get activated. I think it was pretty clean in all 3 of their victories. They looked really clean in the early game, aggressive. They put their vision correctly into the jungle, and they just snowballed their victories with no mistakes. I think this is also what happens when suddenly Caps goes into playoffs, and he also gets activated. He had some fantastic individual plays.
Yeah, Caps was absolutely incredible yesterday. So happy to see him on form for playoffs, and just G2 as a whole, incredible across the board. The spicy drafts, good flexibility, versatility, and just the team fighting was so clean.
I'm glad you guys mentioned Caps. I know, he had some great moves yesterday once again, so we wanted to highlight him. Of course, as always, not the only one. FLICKR had a huge series as well. Jankos, they all had their moments, but again, the playoff Caps buff.
And I honestly think it's very important for Caps to pop off in playoffs, because a lot of the times during the regular season, we kind of pointed the finger at him when the G2 games were not going very well. We're like, he's dying a lot, and characteristically, his damage numbers are still really good, but he does die a lot, and that does hinder your early game. In this particular playoff series, he did not die a lot. He was getting the 1v1s. He was a menace on the Rift.
Yeah, and I think especially into someone like Vizio, who Misfits puts so many resources into once that mid lane starts falling apart. those resources are not going to make a difference, and Caps just took over that mid lane entirely.
It was great to see. Unfortunately for Misfits, they lost to G2, but they're still in the running. They dropped down to the lower bracket. Now they will join, they will face rather the winner of Fnatic versus XL. And the Mad Lions locked Worlds for a third time in a row because of G2 winning. Hey, don't hate the player, hate the game, I guess, hate the bracket, but it is what it is. I'm sure they're really happy that they don't have to stress about that anymore.
It's definitely a little bit of a surreal situation to be in, getting 7th in spring, now losing the only best of 5 they really played, but still securing that world spot. And of course, you know, great for Matt already getting there, and especially getting the chance to fight for redemption after, you know, 2 unfortunate worlds the previous 2 years.
Maybe it unleashes them in the rest of the playoff bracket now that they have that stress off their shoulders. Let's talk a little bit about some of the picks that we saw, specifically yesterday. Sejuani, first pick blue side, all 4 games, top in jungle. What's going on there, Trouble?
I feel like there was a little bit of a different priority going from the Mad Rogue into the G2 Misfits. Mad Rogue very bot-centric, all the Lucians, the Kalystas were thrown in the game. But yesterday it was all about that Sejuani B1, whether it was G2 or Misfits first picking it, whether it was going in the jungle or the top lane. I feel the fact that G2, as I said, top side focused team, wanted to get BB ahead, wanted to play around the Caps Jankos, having that go button with Sejuani, especially when, if you look at Zanzara's pool, anything other than Trundle doesn't really challenge her in the jungle on the 1v1, so it's very free.
And I think that's one of the key points that yesterday Trundle and Poppy were banned in most games, and Sejuani all of a sudden doesn't have any bad jungle matchup. She's a great stable top lane pick, just super good all around. But again, very interesting that game 1 she wasn't picked a single time.
Yeah.
Day 2, she's all over the place.
How challenging is it, Broxa, when you're in the playoffs like this, that you may have different scrim bubbles and maybe completely different expectations for draft?
It's something that's always being talked about in playoffs as international tournaments, because there's, you know, different teams and you can't scrim everyone, so everyone starts developing different metas depending on what works in the first few days of scrims, and they start building on that, and all of a sudden you get into a world where 2 teams think Sejuani is broken, 2 teams doesn't even know she exists.
And talking about Sejuani, EU Master Summer has had his fair share of unique champions shown, from Bel'Veth jungle to Echo and Vel'Koz mid. And turn the studio into the purple because it's that time of the year. The play-ins for the Amazon European Masters have just concluded with nothing other than LFL superiority. It's getting boring at this point. The French region, who sent 2 teams through play-ins, are seeing their entire 4-team roster join the main stage as Vitality B and Gamewood both breeze through their best of 3s with clean 2-0s. And as is tradition this year, we have also had some major upsets. The 3rd seeds from both the NLC and the Superliga, JDXL and Bisons, find themselves eliminated in the play-ins group stage as they both finished 3rd in their respective groups. Now, for Bisons, who brought a lot of creativity and unique compositions, the most unpredictable team draft-wise, with picks such as Silas Bot, Anivia, Vel'Koz mid, they weren't able to use the surprise factor to their advantage this time, as minor region Portugal with White Dragons stepped up in their group to take 2nd place and leave the Spanish team behind. Now, with something a little bit that we know here, JDXL suffered a roster swap at the end of the NLC season, and the team hasn't seemed to have been able to gel together quickly enough for EU Masters. With an astonishing 9-0 first half of the season in the NLC, the Academy team finds a 3rd place finish, which resulted in a play-in spot. With a 0-3 start on the first day, they weren't able to make it out of groups, as yet again, another minor pair of regions, such as the Benelux, but also Greece, showed up and showed off. And talking about Greece, no personal anything here, the GLL found themselves in a really rough position this year, as their main event spot was snatched away by the NLC, which means that the minor regions 2 teams would have to both fight their way through play-ins. And Northoses, though, were stomping with 5-1 performance in their group, managed to kick NLC's 3rd seed out and claim the main stage spot back. Kinda poetic, isn't it? Now, their 16-year-old Polish jungler Douglas has stood out in the Greek team. With insane carry performances on his favorite champion Bel'Veth, he has been an integral part of the team's success in his first ever competitive year. Europe and Polish junglers, you name it, a more iconic duo. Talking about iconic, the Amazon European Masters main stage starts tomorrow, and the groups are looking more and more stacked every year. With returning super teams and pumped up minor regions who have come for blood, expect the unexpected. Now, If we look over to the groups, Group A and Group B look absolutely stacked, and they both could be considered the groups of death. But in Group B, we have former EU Masters champions LDLC and Agorogue, with LDLC coming as pretty much the favorite here since they beat both X7 Esports and Agorogue in best of fives in the last EU Masters. But now, we talked a little bit about this, and we know that the rookies of EU Master Day will become your LEC champions tomorrow. And from Excel at EU Masters to Excel in the LEC, of course, Law is now standing by with their coach Youngbug. So take it away.
Thank you, Trouble. And Youngbug, thank you for joining me. Big day today. An interesting year also when you think about Excel, not to say a roller coaster maybe, playoffs in spring, super good bootcamp, riding the hype in summer, and then fighting for your lives up until the last day of the regular season. How do you reflect on the year so far?
Well, I think a roller coaster is an understatement. I think in spring we did what we wanted to, make playoffs for the first time. And in summer it looked like we were going to be a top team from the very start. And we were already thinking of how we were going to play in the upper bracket and all of that. And then we suddenly hit a 0-5 losing spree. We did manage to come back. And I think it was a scenario where our scrims were going well. Everyone was doing well behind the scenes. Like, we were all getting along very well. We were just losing games and we didn't really know how to come back from it. But we ended up fixing a few things in gameplay and then had a really good Super Week.
Yeah, I still remember how Finn talked about reflecting on this bad side of Excel, if I may say. But you managed to bounce back at the last minute. And I want to know about the impact of that last day and that last game, especially against Vitality, and how it helped you bounce back and be ready for today.
I think it helped us a lot because not only did we win, but we also played a very aggressive style like we did at the start of the summer. So I think that win alone gave us a lot of confidence, and I felt like we really had a groove back in the draft. Like, we were really confident going into the game that we had the draft won. We played extraordinarily, and for the last 2 weeks in practice, we've basically been able to keep that level.
I mean, that's what I understood from Romain's tweet yesterday. I guess scrims have been going well for you?
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that G2 could watch the series in time.
Now, when it comes to today, Fnatic, do or die again. What do you think about this situation, and what is your read on Fnatic when you think about what we've been seeing from them so far and what to expect in playoffs?
I think it's very difficult to have a read on them because in the regular split, I felt for the most part they were very underwhelming. And then in the Super Week, they also showed a really high level of performance. So if they bring that level of performance, we're going to have a very tough series on our hands. But with Fnatic, you never know how consistent they are with that kind of level.
When you think about what is going to come in clutch in today's game, I think bot lane has to be one of the most focused points. Do you agree on that and what to expect?
Yeah, I think both teams are kind of known to like to play around their bot lane, so there's a good chance there will be a lot of action there. I think there might be a lot of draft focus from both teams there as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting for bot lane enthusiasts.
A few words about the team backstage and how they're doing.
Everyone seems very calm because it feels so. We're very confident based off our scrim results, but we also know that we have 3 chances on red side to win. So we have prepared multiple different strategies. So we know that even if we lose the first game, we go to blue side, we keep that one, and then we go back to red side, try another strategy. So we can just throw new strategies at Fnatic. If we win once on red side, they might have 3 lock bans for the rest of the series.
Amazing to be prepped on both sides. We know how blue side has been important so far. Youngbug, thank you so much for the interview. Good luck today, obviously. And Sharks, back to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have heard some, scrim rumors. I mean, it wasn't rumors. FLICKR just said that they got stomped by Excel, and then Romain confirmed it. And actually, on the PGL we had with Rogue, Odawamne and Larsen, said that they expect Excel to make kick out Fnatic then, but make the miracle run. So there's something in the air. But Broxa, we know very well that scrims don't always translate to stage.
I gotta admit, I have had periods on Fnatic where we lost every day of scrims, but then we went on stage, we went into playoffs, the best of 5s, and we just started shining and stomped the opponent. And I think Fnatic is one of those teams where you can never really count them out because regardless of year and lineup, they always deal pretty well with the pressure.
That's a great point. Let's look at the big stories for these teams, because after week 3, both teams are in fact tied in first place. We get a little walk down memory lane here. In fact, Georgia, we were all saying, yeah, these teams are going to make it into playoffs really easy. Is Excel going to go to Worlds? The sky was the limit.
And that was the most amazing thing for both of these teams. For Fnatic, the super team from spring that didn't do that well, now in summer, finally showing up. Third week, and they're already at the top of the standings. For Excel, they scraped by in playoffs in spring. Now they're looking like a contender for first place, And suddenly, it collapses. They're not consistent, they start dropping games, and they both scraped by at the last second, even with XL having to play an extra game, a tiebreaker that was do or die for them to make playoffs.
And the XL one is incredibly surprising for me, because when I came here for the first time in week 2, the only thing we talked about was XL's dominance, how amazing they were, how much the Korean bootcamp had helped them. Markoon. That was all we talked about.
That might have been me, I'm sorry.
Well, but then, you know, at the end of regular split, it was a completely different story, and then it ended up being the downfall of XL. And now they're in such an interesting position where, you know, we don't really know what to expect from them, because we've seen both good and bad sides.
It's nice to hear from Youngbuck, though, that he says the fact that we were able to survive that tiebreaker versus Vitality, a tough opponent, to book our spot is great. When you look at Fnatic, they had a 3-0 Super Week. The only game they lost, because they went 3-1, is versus Misfits for the seeding, but that makes such a world of difference. I wonder how much that's ghosting their thoughts right now, Brox, are coming into this one, now knowing we could have just been in the upper bracket.
There's no doubt that losing that match versus Misfits and not getting to start in the upper bracket is going to haunt them, because as a player, the only thing you care about the entire year is making it to Worlds, getting to play that international event, because we don't have a lot of them in League. And now, they only have one chance. It has to count today. And I'm sure that everyone, both on XL and Fnatic, have it in the back of their mind that they just can't lose today. You don't want to wait an entire year for another opportunity to go to Worlds.
And also, you heard it from Youngbuck. He's like, we don't know which iteration of Fnatic is going to show up today, right? So being able to go from the top bracket, having that official best of 5 in your belt, even if you end up losing to G2, you still get that official practice of a best of series, and that is so important. Now it's do or die. You lose, you're out.
And this is it also, right, in the lower bracket. We can celebrate that XL went back-to-back in playoffs, of course, because Youngbuck said as much. He said, we wanted to get to playoffs. That was our goal. It's just about how much do you keep that in the back of your mind, the fact that you could have been so much more. And I think when we look at this best of 5, this is now where you can prove we can play like that team you saw in week 3.
I feel like at this point, none of the XL players or staff or anyone is going to be happy about just making it to playoffs again, because at this point, with the level they've shown, when they played at their best in summer, they have to expect to go to Worlds, and that's what it's all about. That's why they brought in Mickey to begin with. They didn't bring in Mickey just to get to playoffs. They wanna actually compete, right?
So let's talk a little bit about what we may see on the Rift. I heard some talk about the picks that Youngbuck may have prepared with XL and the draft approaches. Now, this is how it's been going so far in the playoffs. 100% presence for Draven. We haven't seen him yet. Poppy, Yuumi, and Sivir. It is the expectation that at least in the ban and pick sphere, that should stay about the same.
Fun fact. Draven has had 100% presence in the ban phase. No one has been able to pick him yet, and knowing that both AD carries they play him, I'm expecting to see still 100% banned. But when it comes to Poppy, can make very easy early game engages. She can peel off for AD carries, and having a very bot-centric meta, that champion really counts. Of course, together with Yuumi, that does like to stick on these carries. Now, of course, having Hilly and having Mickey and having these two supports that you do necessarily like them on engaged champions, I don't know how much we'll see the Yuumi shift, even though XL have seemed to favor it a lot in their picks.
I only want to see Yuumi under one single circumstance today, and that is if Upset decides to do a reckless cosplay, locks in the Garen, give me that Garen Yuumi for the 2019
You really want to
memories.
see this again?
Well, it's like a mix, right? I have exciting memories about it, and I have traumatic ones. So it really depends, but at least then it's gonna be fun. I don't want to see the Siri Yuumi just running people down. No.
I see what you mean. I think maybe we'll see it. Who knows? But yeah, bot lane is going to be huge. I think now that we have the tape of the best of 5s we already saw in playoffs, it was so much about bot lane and about the might of those AD carries. And we have Upset and Patrick here. This could be a feast, not only for us to watch, but also the way they approach these games, because they can really step up and carry. Talk to me about the champion pools of these two players and how they compare.
Now, don't get me wrong, these two are probably some of the best AD carries that we have in Europe, and they can play anything and everything, but where they've shined the most, it is Upset on those late game scaling carries. As we can see, the Zeri, the Sivir, the Twitch, the Kog'Maw, you name it, late game scaling, hyper carrying, Upset does play it. If you look over on the other side, and Youngbuck also mentioned that they do like to play towards the bot side of the map. You see Lucian, Kalista, Draven, Samira, they like to play for that early game. They like to snowball, and we know that once XL does get that early game, they don't let go.
Talk to me, Broxa, about the support picks. I know, of course, you know Hilly very, very well. You also used to play against Mickey a ton, I guess. But Hilly, in our eyes, is kind of the best when he gets to engage, when he gets to set the pace. Sometimes he hasn't always been on those picks because of the prevalence of the Zeri that needs to be paired with something else, like a Lulu or a Yuumi. So how do you think that's going to influence the drafting of Fnatic?
I decided to have a look this morning at what champions Huli played the most when I played with him, because the Huli that I've seen here in summer is very different, than the Huli that I remember. Because back then it was Rakan, Pyke, it was Braum, and now the guy is sitting playing Lulu, playing Enchantress. I don't know what's going on. And while I gotta admit he does this very well, I hope we're gonna have a chance of Huli on some playmakers today, because I think that's where he can really shine and make a difference. I think most supports at this level are able to, lock in Lulu and just press EW on the AD carry. But I love the playmakers, and I think when we compare Mickey and Huli, both of them have an incredibly high level. Huli has a bit higher highs and lower lows, and Mickey is usually pretty consistent across the board.
It reminds me of yesterday, we brought it up with Targamas as well, and he said, well, you can still see the difference between a good and a bad Lulu, because the bad one will get caught out of position and die a lot,
Fair
and
point.
if you play it cleanly, it is a difference. So I think it's these subtle differences, right?
Definitely.
When it comes to the rest of the pool, we saw a lot of Renekton, we saw a lot of Sejuani, of course. How big do we think their presence is going to be?
Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm a Renekton lover. I love this champion.
The anti-LS.
I love what he provides to the team, right? Because teams are very prominent to fighting now at level 6 for the Heralds 8 minutes in, for the first Dragons. And this is where this champion shines, getting that level 6, having the survivability through the ult, and dealing insane amounts of base damage from his kit. And then later on, he can also be a peeler for his AD carry. Can sit around your AD carry, allow them to do the job. You just stun whoever comes near, right? Same thing for Sejuani. You need a go button. She has it again through these choke points at that level 6. When you're fighting for Herald, it's so important having that go button.
Definitely, and in an elimination match, you want a lot of go buttons, right? Because you don't want to have to be like, all right, are we going in? Are we not? When it comes to these two teams, as we said already, they have shown their best side. We've seen a very good Fnatic this summer. We've seen a very good XL this summer. Broxa, what does a perfect XL look like?
I think a perfect XL is one that has top tier synergy between Nukedog, Makoon, and Mickey. I think these three, when XL played at their best, were always on the same page. They were always proactive. We found Makoon in the enemy jungle making plays basically the entire game. And now, in the second half of the split, where that synergy started falling apart, is where XL just didn't look like a great team anymore. So I want to see them go back to that, set Makoon up, let him play aggressive, and then he's going to do the work for you.
And a lot of the success from Makoon comes through a change in playstyle for Nukeduck as well in the mid lane. Over in Spring, we saw him sit in the mid lane quite a bit, pushing the wave. Right now, it's all about the side lanes. Either ditch mid wave or shove it in hard and then go into side lane for more pressure, for ganks. And I just really love the synergy coming in from XL. You usually see them moving around as a 3 or 4 man unit through the early game. And again, we have praised them that when they're ahead, they never let go of how quick their macro is and the rotations from bot to top.
They need their early game leads. They need to push them. Fnatic needs to have the focus on the same thing. When it comes to Fnatic versus XL specifically, XL had never been able to win a game versus Fnatic before this year. Now they're currently 3-1, winning both games in summer over Fnatic, meaning that they have their number, Broxa. But that shouldn't be the case if you look at what Fnatic could be doing, because theoretically they could carry from every lane.
Oh, definitely. I think Fnatic on a good day does have a very good chance of beating XL. Wonder is Mr. Consistent in the top lane. You always know what to expect from him. He's always going to be solid. Obscent and Huli have shown very big carry performances. And most of the question marks have been around Humanoid and Razork.
Yeah.
Humanoid has had good and bad days, both in terms of dying in lane early, messing up team fights. Razork has died a lot in the early game. And these are the two that really need to perform today for Fnatic to beat XL.
Yeah, I think that's clear to see. It's been a huge talking point as well. Razork just not always finding his exact spot of what he should be doing, or rather, I should say, maybe what the team wants him to do.
And I feel like this stems from the very bottom of the problem, which is with the meta changing, with the AD carry changing, with the support changing. Hylissang suddenly is not the engager, he's on an enchanter. So Razork has to take that front, Wonder has to take that front. And this is why we've been so confused with Fnatic's playstyle, because I don't necessarily think they have figured out how they want to play. And with Razork, we saw a heat map towards the early stages of the split, where he was playing mostly towards the top side, where Wonder is. But then we've always said that Fnatic is a very bot-centric team, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
It could also just be that Fnatic is one step ahead of all of us, really, because if they don't know what they're doing, how is XL supposed to know, right?
Exactly. When it comes to the supports, we talked a lot about Mickey as well. I think they're both so instrumental to how their teams like to play. Mickey had some stinkers of games, unfortunately. Broxa, I think for both of them, both Huli, who wants to be, I feel like, the support who really makes an imprint on a series like this, right? And the same thing goes for Mickey.
I feel like both of these guys just need to come in today comfortable, confident. Their team relies heavily on them. I know both of them have a huge impact, not only in-game, but also out of game in comms. And you just need these two veterans to be able to have a good day, to share all their experience and to put the teams on their backs.
Is that something that maybe coaching staff on either side should identify and like be, okay, well, Hilly, we know you crush it on Rakan, let's try and get you a prio pick, or is that just not the world we live in right now?
Well, I think Huli at this point has played enough games to shine on other picks as well. For example, his Cillian support is something that I've always enjoyed, even though it's so different than what we expect to see out of him. And I think it's just about setting up, you know, the teams with a good draft going into game one, give them the momentum, and then the players are just naturally going to start taking over themselves regardless of draft.
Yeah, and I feel like since we were talking about how bot-centric in the entirety of the meta is right now, whether it is early game aggression or late game scalers, I feel having that top-notch support towards the bot side of the map performing is going to be of pivotal importance for both.
Very much so. As we get closer to the match and to our predictions, let's zoom out a little bit again when it comes to these organizations. Of course, Fnatic has not missed Worlds since 2016 for all of them.
Look at Huli, by the way, getting a massage.
Massage
He's getting ready right there.
Pete really does everything, right? Now also a massage.
He's preparing him to carry.
Pete is actually a multi-talent. He does it all.
He definitely is. But the stress on these players, also some of them, if you've been there, or maybe even harder, if you've been there, you don't want to miss it. And if you haven't been there, it's all you can think about.
Yeah, and obviously talking about how strong in general this team is, Fnatic hasn't won anything since 2018. Now it's the time to show up and show off. A bunch of these players who have been there, have been in the World's finals, want to get back on this stage. People who missed the opportunity, Upset did qualify. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. Really wants to prove himself to get there back up again and show the world how big of an AD carry he is and why the Soul label, one of the best bots in the West, him and Hylissang are. And I think, again, also for Excel, it's very important because it's always one step forward for every team. First, you make playoffs. Now you need to make it further into playoffs. They put their effort into having that Korean bootcamp to get ahead of everyone else because they are aiming for this world spot.
I was actually surprised in my first split on Fnatic about the way that Reckless and Soas were talking about going to Worlds back then, because it was still new for me. Just playing in the LEC was already so big. But at one point, when you have played in the LEC for a certain amount of time, it's all about Worlds. It becomes an obsession, and it started becoming an obsession for me, just like how it was for Reckless and Soas and how they described it to me. And all these players, especially the ones that have competed at the very top, they have to make it there. Like I don't even think fans understand how much it means to these players.
Oh, unbelievable. And Finn also, you know, there's added stakes because you want to make it to Malmö if you are Swedish, but in general, you want to make it to an LEC final as well. Let's get into our predictions, a little bit of extra info. Fnatic picked blue side for game 1. Excel on blue side has a 9 wins, 2 loss record. Excel on red side has a 1 win, 7 loss record. So, yeah, let me know if that influences your predictions at all.
I find it very fun, the fact that Fnatic have won more on red side, but yet they just want to take away the blue side from Excel because it makes them very dominant as a team. But are we doing predictions?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, screw the track record 3-1 Fnatic. I think this caliber of players, this so-called super team that we labeled over back in spring, this is the time to show up and show off, and I think they have the caliber of players that will step up for these playoffs.
Okay.
I also expect Fnatic to come out on top today. I think.
Shocker.
No bias, of course. No, I think it could easily be a very, very close series. Both of these teams are really good. They've had, you know, inconsistent moments, and I'm mostly just looking forward to seeing what performance they're going to bring today. I think assuming we're going to get both of them at their best, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to come down to Upset versus Patrick, and I'm going to say 3-2 Fnatic. Hopefully, I'm going to be right. Fnatic fans, I'm trying my best. Just keep that in mind.
Completely disregarding scrim records. I like that. You know, it's all about what happens on the Rift. The Rift does not give anything about your scrim results or your legacy, but Discord, in a complete left field prediction, goes for an XL win. I like it. We've got the Fnatic faithful are not faithful anymore. Let's see what happens. The ultimate series of the weekend. One team will end their entire 2022 season tonight. One team will advance to face Misfits next week. Let's get into the draft with Medic, Vedi, and GB.